And now we have Tim Mathiesen, who is going to speak about how to make your tiny house or any other space one.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. As the title says, we're going to talk about lighting and kind of some general design principles over the course of the next few minutes. I'm going to start with a kind of an opening premise that I believe tiny to be 500 square feet or less. That's kind of it. If you want to debate that, I'm free after the talk is over and we can talk about how tiny is tiny. But that's where I'm starting from. It can be on wheels, it can be on a permanent foundation. That part is not significant, even though everything we're looking at today is on wheels. So that's where I'm beginning. And I just need my glasses so I can make sure I cover all my topics. So let's get started. In terms of research and design development, I would encourage you to go and stay in a tiny house, either your friends or go and rent one. I have one or two examples, I think, of ones that are rentable that you'll get to see as we go on. But I think it's important that you get some firsthand experience to get yourself started in the process, and then spend some time working with either pen and paper or working in SketchUp, like the image on the right, working in a digital model, or it's now possible to go on the internet and find people who are willing to 3D print parts of a model so that you can play around with different configurations. So research, 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 develop, develop over and over again. A couple of examples of taking a plan that's gone through design development and research and showing you the end product. This happens to be a micro apartment, just a little over 200 square feet, that's in Berlin. You can just barely see in the upper left corner the entry door into this micro apartment. You walk by the bathroom and then into the main space. The kitchen is in the lower left. And what you're looking at in the lower picture is a view from the living area or sitting area, looking back towards the kitchen on the left-hand side and the entry door on the right-hand side. Here's an example of something that is very similar to a container home. It's not a traditional container that's been recycled, but it's built in a very similar fashion. And this has a couple of things that I really like in this design. This one also is just a little over 200 square feet, 250, I think. This has a wood stove, the circle that's very near the center of the floor plan, and it has these two fold-down decks along both sides. So we're taking advantage of the outside as well as making the most of our inside or interiors. This is a prefab. And certainly prefab is something that's worth considering as you're doing your research. This particular one, called the Coda, is just 300 square feet. This one comes from Estonia, but there are prefab companies in the US as well. And the idea with this one, that whole end wall of glazing, the building itself is made of concrete, but the glazing is quadruple thick glazing, which really helps with the energy efficiency. And when design goes wrong, this can be the end result. So research, design development, really vital to your success. I'm I'm hoping that the owner of this building is not here today, looking at downsizing. So a couple of design principles. The first being that we want to consider daylighting. How do we bring natural light into the space? And I'm going to encourage you to do it from 2 sides or 3 sides or all 4 sides in each of your spaces. Obviously, the size of your overall space will determine some of this, but daylighting is extremely important. And a couple of examples, in the upper left, you can see all sides are utilized in this one, including the skylight. And in the lower left, we have the same thing. Skylights are utilized as a way to bring daylight into your space. And by the way, the one in the upper left is called the Glass House from Escape Homes, and it's available for rent in the Hudson Valley. So not exactly next door, but nearby. One of the other design principles is to think about color and tone and how the lines of your space, how they affect how that space feels. When you use similar colors, similar tones, the space tends to feel more expansive. The walls will recede. They'll move away from you and make it feel like you have more space than you really do. And when you use lines, like the right-hand picture, vertical lines will tend to accentuate the height of a space, and horizontal lines will tend to either affect the length or the width of a space. So utilizing, in that case, both the vertical lines and the horizontals on the ceiling, you get a chance to feel taller and to feel wider. Another principle is making the most of every inch you've got. That kitchen that's pictured is only 10 feet wide, but it's a full kitchen. It has everything in it, including the 2 sets of pantry shelves. It's got pot racks, it's got knife racks, and it doesn't look that cluttered. Everything is there, utilizing the inches that they have in the best way they can. And on the right-hand side, you have examples of shelves, drawers, cubbies, and niches, all in a very small space. So that kind of thing, and this is functional in that it's stairs going up to the loft. The last principle I think to talk about is embrace the outside. This on the top picture, that's actually a storage tank that was converted, old rusted out storage tank that somebody found. I believe this one was actually featured on a TV show. They cut the huge rectangular hole in it, put in sliding doors, and they cut both ends off, and glazed them so there's light coming from 3 sides. And they built this huge outdoor deck, multi-level, benches are built in, the fire pit, everything is there that they could possibly want. And in the bottom, there are actually lit stools and tables that you can use in your outdoor space. Take advantage of a roof deck. If you've got a flat roof, this one actually has AstroTurf on it, so that it will feel like you really are outdoors, even if you're in a parking lot someplace. But you definitely want to take advantage of outdoor space in any way that you can. And this is what I would call an upcycled house in Australia. Belongs to an architect who saved a building from demolition. He actually, I kind of like this because he cut this unusual doorway. Instead of taking advantage of the door that was already in the space, he decided to break away the brick and create a new entry, which I kind of like how that came out. And then he also covered it with a canopy of solar panels to take advantage of that. Here's another example with a drop-down or fold-down deck. It also has a small canopy over the top of it for a little bit of weather protection. And inside of this particular one is the garage door that you can see. So manual or electric operation for that glass door to open up a whole side of the house. Another example with a fold-down deck and a fold-up canopy for weather protection. And in this example, a full wraparound deck. This is a permanent tiny home, happens to be in New Zealand, but in this case, we get a full wraparound deck. We get a raised garden nearby. We've got the outdoor fireplace, pretty much everything that you would have in your full-sized home, but here in a tiny home. Okay, so this is the only slide that's all words, no pictures. But this is important because I'm a lighting guy. And these are the principles that I use when I'm looking at a job, whether it's 80 square feet or 800 square feet or a couple thousand square feet. I'm always looking at what type of light am I going to use? Where am I going to put that light? And how am I going to control it? So we'll talk about some of the specifics. I always look to layer lighting so that our spaces, as we change our mood or as we change the use of a space, it's important that we can adapt our light to that space. And so layers of light, having light from multiple sources, is one of the ways that we can do that. In this case, we have cove lighting that is up around the ceiling panel, and then we also have the two pendants either side of the bed, plus we have 3 sides worth of windows. So it's a good example of layers of light. A couple of things about basic lighting in the space. LEDs are the way to go for energy efficiency, for size, for ease of hiding them. Most of them are dimmable, but it certainly is a question that you'll want to ask as you're deciding which lights to purchase. Whether it's dimmable or not. The slim surface is basically, it looks like a recessed light. This particular one from Philips comes in 2 different shapes and also 4 different sizes. So there's plenty of options about which light to use in which location. And then the LED tape in the lower left, and a simple installation of string lights. And in this particular case, that's the same house that had the garage door. 2 companies that I really like for their LED replacement bulbs for any lamp that you already own that uses a regular screw-in Edison bulb. These 2 companies, Cree and Philips, make really good light bulbs in the LED style, dimmable. Some of them are tunable so that you can change the actual color tone of the light from a very warm sunrise kind of light to a very cool type of light. So both companies are worth consideration. And I want to keep the light as multifunctional as possible. So in this case, we have a couple of examples on the left of light that projects both up and down, that being something that will enhance the space both for reflection off the ceiling and off the walls, as well as putting direct light onto a surface. And then the swing arm lights, they swing 180 degrees from the wall mount, and also the head pivots so that you can either direct the light down onto a surface, maybe against the wall to bounce light back into the ceiling, back into the area, or to make the light go face up so that it reflects off the ceiling. A couple more examples of multifunctional light. The folding screen has LED lights in it, so that allows you to get light into the space and also to shutter off part of the space to make it a little bit more intimate, a little bit more private. And the light on the right, friends of mine, we've installed this, and they call it the taco light for its shape and its size, but it also pivots and can be adjusted for uplight, downlight, or anywhere in between. And shadow play is an important part of lighting. A lot of cases, shadow play can actually create art on your wall or on your ceiling. A couple of examples of that here and here. And the top left is also a projection that can, in this case, make you think you've got one more window in your space that you don't really have to pay for. And it can, the silhouette, the gobo that's used in that projection can actually be a number of different scenes. So you can either have palm fronds or anything else that you might like, a forest scene, a street scene, a cityscape, whatever it is. So we also want to do multifunctional in terms of our furniture, the spaces themselves. So a couple of examples of folding tables, one with the mirror in the upper left. The frame of the mirror actually becomes the support for the table. And in the other case, it's a storage cabinet where the face folds down and becomes a table. And, oh, we're back at the house in New Zealand, in the backcountry of New Zealand. That wraparound deck actually has a picnic table during the day. And when you remove the picnic table, it becomes a pair of bathtubs for soaking. Before I had that one version of a lit screen. It's also possible to get screens that are flexible. The top left is an example where you can actually make kind of a serpentine or any shape you want out of that one. Permanent panels like the lower left allow daylight to come through and project onto the opposite surface. And sliding panels or folding doors is another way to have a space be multifunctional. Okay, another principle, personalizing your space. Vera talked about customizing. Maybe this is my version where you're talking about personalizing. One of the things is to create or install artwork of some sort. Sarah Rice, who did the Tiny But Mighty drawing, is right outside, and she takes commissions, so you can give her a photo of your tiny house, and she'll turn it into artwork for you, which you can frame and hang up. In the right hand, that is recycled tile, recycled wood for the door and cabinet fronts, recycled tile on the floor and the wall. That is back in that upcycle house that was in Australia. If you really love stonework, or if you really love pizza, it's possible to put a stone chimney inside your tiny house. It's possible to build your own or have somebody build you a pizza oven. In this case, both of these are inside of tiny houses on wheels as well. So both these installations are accounted for in the trailer weight and the ton weight. And then we get into thinking, we've talked a little bit about kind of the basic lights, the slim surface, the LED tape, doing cove lighting, things like that. But I would also encourage you to leave room somewhere in the design for feature lighting. It can be a treasured hand-me-down that you got from your grandparents. It could be a special purchase that you made just for your new tiny house. Make somewhere in the design where you can hang something that brings you great pleasure. So there are a couple of examples here of different types of feature lighting, something that is really, truly unique. And it can be a certain design style, It can come from a certain design era, as these do. A couple more examples. And then flexibility or multifunctionality is important. A lot of the pictures that I just showed you are pendant lights, and because the use of our space often changes over time, or our mood changes, and we move the furniture around, a hook like the Little Bishop, instead of using a cup hook screwed into the ceiling, use something with a little design thought that's gone into it. And this is one example that allows you to take a cord-hung pendant and change the location. And I don't want to forget about DIY. There are a couple of good examples here of lights that were built by owners. There's a ski mask that was turned into a wall sconce. The collection of linen and paper shades that were turned into a cluster became a giant chandelier. The middle picture in the upper tier, that's actually vellum, kind of a poly paper that has been turned into a wall sconce with multiple layers of both up and down light. And then lastly, that's a piece of PVC pipe that was carved by the owner and a light bulb installed in the bottom of it. And it has become a kind of really beautiful sculptural and also projects nicely on the wall surface. I think that's it. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your attention.